Hey guys, and welcome to a pretty wild replay. We're in for a crazy showdown between Elgi, Nedlog and Pubziraven. Although on the left hand side this is actually Golden Eagle, although we are playing on their version of the game of course. And this was from a really fun challenge I set about a week ago, where you had to get as many kills as possible from the Templehof Luminark, in fact any Luminark for that matter. And that may not sound too crazy, most kills from a unit, that's not much of a challenge, but this is the Luminark we're speaking of. It has limited ammunition, basically no melee capabilities, and is designed to take out single entities, characters, and high-value targets. So I thought it would be really funny to kind of throw it for an absolute loophole and make it have to kill chaff, really confuse your opponents, and all that good stuff, and see what also tactics players employ to try to get this thing have as many kills as possible. So of course we do have the Templehof Luminark on this right-hand side, and it is escorted by double Reichsguard, 2 medium-tier cavalry, anti-infantry good at running over skinks and Saurus alike. Leading the battlefield, we do have Marcus Wolfhart, of course, will be coming in with his nets, and already I really like the game plan coming in from the Empire's perspective. They've been trying to push the Luminark out to this right-hand side so it can shoot down the ranks of the enemy to get as many kills as possible. We have double Outriders for a bit more mobile support, and then a ton of cheap and cheerful front line, Spearmen and Swordsmen dotted all the way throughout, including the Unbreakable Sigma Suns will work as a really nice anvil to the hammer that is the Luminark. On this left-hand side, we have one more unit of Reichsguard, as well as a Jade Wizard with Regrowth and Earthblood, I'm sure ready to heal up the big beastie itself. Coming against him today is the mighty forces of the Lizardmen, and it's a pretty standard build with double Bastiladon with Solar Engine. Generally considered very competitive as far as the meta goes, and then a bucket ton of skinks. We have skink cohorts, red-crested skinks as well in the secondary line, and a couple of chameleon skinks. On the back burner, we do have a bucket ton of feral cold ones, which is rather exciting. 1, 2, 3, 4 units, in fact. Units you don't get to see terribly often. Up in the sky, Skink Priest, the Beast, Amber Spear, Flock of Doom, and the Prey. We have a Saurus Scar Veteran down here on a mount, as well as a Saurus Old Blood, basically just on the regular cold one mounts. So the Bastiladon does take a big beaming shot to the face from the Templehof Luminark, doing some really nice damage, but of course, killing the Bastiladon would only count as 1 kill, and you have very limited ammunition. So it looks like you need to try and find a right balance between it still staying in the game, so Luminark survives and can still get kills, but also, you know, shooting the enemy and getting that score up. It looks like the big first beam is going to be raking down the line, doing massive damage, exploding skink, blood and dirt, all in one deadly concoction. Up to 40 kills out of the gate, certainly not too shabby whatsoever. And it looks like the Lizardmen are putting a lot of pressure on this left-hand side. They realise the threat that the Luminark does indeed cost, although perhaps not in how it's currently being used, and decide to try to focus it down. Marcus Wolfhart is also taking a lot of pressure from those solar engines. Another shot does come in, but unfortunately it is a bit of a miss. Now, one big problem for the Luminark here is the Bastiladons with solar engines apply a blinding effect, lowering accuracy, which certainly won't do them much good. Down here on the left-hand side, Reichsguard certainly taking a huge punishment at the moment from a mixture of chameleon skinks and sheer overwhelming numbers of the feral cold ones. But down in the main battle, it looks like the red-crested skinks have been hit by a hunter's snare, allowing the Luminark to fire with more impunity. Once again, going down the lines of those skink cohorts, doing some massive damage, and hilariously, the Empire player is just retreating and falling back as fast as possible, as of course his entire battle plan remains around this right-hand flank. Over on the side, Outriders do need to push up and help support the Reichsguard, who are slowly being overwhelmed just by sheer numbers of the deadly feral beasts, who are coming in, munching at those horses with teeth and claw, rendering armor asunder, doing some nice damage. Looks like they have to break 1 unit, and unfortunately themselves have Rampage, allowing the second Reichsguard to catch them unawares, although Chameleon Skinks are currently doing a nice little bit of Overwatch fire. I'm sure at this point in the battle, the Lizardman player is incredibly confused by the Empire's tactics, as it seems they have abandoned Marcus Wolfhart in a desperate attempt to grab the attention of the Saurus Scar Veteran and Saurus Old Blood, so the Templehof Luminark can indeed escape down to the left-hand side. Outriders are here to support, however, and they will do some really nice armor-piercing damage to both the heroes and lords here, if they are enabled to fire. Unfortunately, there is some red-crested skinks applying a little bit of pressure as well, although the Skink Priest of Beast seems to be flying over. A Manticore summon to help finish off Marcus would be quite nice. Instead, he's lining up an Amber Spear coming in for that final kill, and instead, bam, it slams, I was about to say smam and slam at the same time, whatever it is, slams the Saurus Scar Veteran in the back of the head, although it doesn't stop him at finishing the job, doing some lovely damage on Marcus, driving him from the battlefield before going on a suicide charge into the Outriders, which is a glorious way for any mighty Saurusman to go. In the main battle line, it is really tattered. The occasional skink is getting through and just chucking itself onto a spear wall. Red-crested skinks are doing the same thing as well, fighting Sigma Suns and Spearmen. Templehof Luminark at this point has decided to pull back where possible, so hopefully enable to get a few more shots down the lines which are currently fighting. Already up to an impressive 104 kills. Very nice work so far by Golden Eagle. Outriders are falling back away from the rampage of the Saurus Oldblood, not too happy of how his younger brother, the Saurus Scar veteran, did fare. At this point, the Lizardmen force is kind of split into two, which is a massive problem. They're not fighting in any form of synergy at the moment. And that's because they were so obsessed with destroying that left-hand flank and driving off the Knights, which they did do rather effectively. They also got the Empire Lord. He is dead, and that's going to be a big boon for the forces of the Lizardmen. Of course, the Empire don't care if they win this battle, just how many kills they can get. And the Templehof Luminark, 145 now. Looks like it actually went into combat a little bit, but needs to line up some bigger shots. Unfortunately, there's nothing left down the line for it really to abuse. So instead, a nice juicy unit of red-crested skinks is going to be receiving a big beam to the face. In fact, there's two units kind of collapsed in on each other there, and a trail of blood and thunder emerges as the Templehof reaps havoc once more. 167 kills is pretty impressive stuff. Over on the far side, Outriders are being pushed off. There are some Reichsguard here to support, however. It looks like they are going to be hit by a curse to slow them down. Unfortunately, good idea, but a tiny bit late by the Lizardman player, as now his feral cold ones have been caught up by the Reichsguard, who will easily dispatch them despite the nerf here of the curse on them. They're simply far too powerful, and their thick Empire will-built armour will easily withstand the rendering crawls of the cold ones. More cold ones are kind of slowly pulling over towards the central force. There are some spearmen here who have bunched up a load of troops, which are getting hammered once more by the Templehof, but there is going to be a little bit of a sacrifice on their part. The majority of the Empire force vibing at the back, simply waiting for the Lizardmen to advance. Outriders focusing down the cavalry as well as the Saurus Oldblood, which is a really good idea, as those are some of the units which can be fast enough to pressure the Templehof rather quickly. Although the Double Chameleons are still being a plane and both Bastildons are alive, maybe worth wasting one ammunition onto this Bastildon to get it off the field to stop that blinding effect being applied, but at the same time you only have a very limited ammunition. We have 6 rounds left, and as I said at the start, not the greatest melee stats in the universe, although currently the Outriders are the focus of vengeance for the Bastildons. More shots once again coming in, aiming at that bunch of red-crested skinks and cohorts who are kind of too clumped together at the moment. They need to spread their formation and advance upon the enemy. I'm sure the Lizardman player is incredibly bemused at the moment when you see something so ridiculous and it kind of stuns you into dumbness. I feel like that is happening right now with the Templehof focusing down at those glorious infantry, cheap and cheerful troops, now trying to whack the red-crested skinks, who are silver chevron as well. 2 Chameleon Skinks are leading the charge down this flank. Now both Bastildons have turned their attention onto the Luminark, trying to doom it for good. And this is really unfortunate for the challenge, because that minus 30 accuracy will have a big impact on how much damage this bad boy could do. But it looks like the blinding has just about worn off, allowing the Templehof to shoot once more before it gets blinded again. Again, going down the ranks of that unit, hitting those skink cohorts, obliterating them on the approach. Lizardman player being a little bit too chilled, I think. Needs to get a bit more aggressive. Of course, you don't want to waste troops chucking them into Spearmen, but assassinate that Jade Wizard, get rid of the Templehof, and you'll be absolutely in good shape. Those Bastildons reaping havoc on the Spearmen and other such units. Although it looks like for now they're really desperately trying to focus down the Outriders, and it looks like they may be able to drive some of them away, although some loyal Reichsguard have answered the call to arms to try and duel the two big beasties. Reichsguard have pretty decent anti-infantry stats for the most part, but again, the thick armoured hides of Bastildon, 140 armour is certainly nothing to mess with. Another curse goes down on the Reichsguard, lowering their melee attack significantly to a whopping 10. Means they're not going to have a good day at all. And Feral Cold Ones are slowly starting to swarm over from positions where they had fallen back to before. Even the Saurus Scar veteran is here, although he has 1 leadership and 38 health, so I doubt he's going to have too much of an impact on the battlefield. The Skink Priest is now hunting down the Outriders and jumping some Flock of Doom, which is a nice play here. Lizardman player trying to scrap back up against the absolute madness, which he does find himself facing. So a little run-in with the Luminark. How many kills has it got? Up to 282. Very lovely stuff, and its target is going to be that juicy unit of red cresters in the back, which had 33 models in, down to 23. Another 10 kills added to the kill count. Poor Reichsguard unfortunately have been butchered at this point, or at least terrified off. That Skink Priest, or maybe even the Saurus Scar veteran, he might break if he gets a bit too close, but could be used to chase these guys down and force them off the field. These Bastildons now need to turn their sights realistically onto the infantry. Yes, the Luminark looks like a nice juicy target, but it only has 1 ammunition. Not much value left in that bad boy. Start focusing down those Spearmen, get rid of them, and allow the Saurus Oldblood and Bastildons to carry in the late game. Chameleon Skinks continue to fire in into the Reichsguard, slowing them down, but to be honest, the Skink Priest with Beasts should be able to escort them off the field rather nicely. The Mighty Saurus Scarvetching coming back and getting ready for the main engagement. Now it is the Lizardman player's turn to fall back and laugh as the Empire have to trundle through the muck and mud of dead bodies to reach them, as now they have the range advantage. Bastildons continue to fire in, focus down those Outriders. They are one of the best armor-piercing units left on the battlefield for the forces of the Empire, so get them offline, it certainly will be useful. How many ammunition do we have left? 3 shots left on this Bastildon. In the distance, the Templehof does have 298 kills, is unfortunately out of ammunition at this point, but that's not too bad. There's not that much left to kill, at least as far as infantry is concerned, and Roland as a really terrible slow charge is absolutely what this challenge was about the entire time, which is going to be very funny. Bastildons are starting to fall back behind their lines. A lovely little Earthblood is going to cheer up the Spearmen as well as the Sigmar Sons, who need to charge in here and really get to grips with the enemy. They'll be able to delete the front line very quickly. That Saurus Old Blood, as well as both the Bastildons, are another problem entirely. Looks like that Saurus Old Blood moving forward as well to get a better sight of the enemy, as he sees the Empire, or the men of the Empire, lurking towards him. Chameleon Skinks do have some okay ammunition left as well. In the distance, it looks like those knights have been forced off, so we still have 8 feral cold ones and a Skink Priest of Beast to return to the fray just yet. Chameleon Skinks literally just want to poison swordsmen and spearmen, slowly drag them down. They also could focus fire down the Jade Wizard, but likewise the Saurus Old Blood could just shoot through and jump on him. There's nothing really to stop him at this point, but instead he is going to be left fighting the Sigmar Sons, which is not a good target because they are of course unbreakable. He has some glorious attack animations though, and oh my god, he just ripped that guy apart in the snapping jaws of his Cold One pet. He just, made this Empire man today pretty bad. They're going to have to bury the pieces rather than the body, and more of them are being thrown around as we speak. Red Cresteds will stay and fight despite the fact they are weakened. They are Silver Chevrons. Chameleon Skinks are now kiting back, unleashing hell upon the swordsmen. And these swordsmen do have shields though, so they'll be able to take a few of the darts. It's still not very nice for them. And the Bastildons need to get real aggressive and kind of get into the midst of the enemy. Looks like that's just what this one is doing. Terror could be a big problem for the force of the Empire in the late game here, because their leader did die so early to save this majestic chariot. Look at this old guy on the back. He's just there like, yeah, we got this. We absolutely got this. Up to 303 kills, so certainly adding to the tally. Running down routing units might not be the worst idea whatsoever, as it is just 3 kills to add to the count. Spearmen are starting to come back to the cause. Sigmar Sons are still fighting relatively strong. They're about to receive a charge here from some rather bloodied feral cold ones. Jumping in here, snapping, biting, and trying their little hearts out, but unfortunately they are going to break up very quickly. No chance the Suns will break. They, of course, are unbreakable. And this Bastildon is spending rather a long time amongst Spearmen, although it looks like a big Amber Spear is going to come down the line on this big blocked-up unit of Spearmen. Bam! Oh, no! it hits the Bastildon. This has been the unluckiest Skink Priest. He shot a Saurus Scarvetching in the back of the head, and now shot his Bastildon in the flank. That is some unlucky casting for sure. Jade Wizard has popped Earthblood on himself to try and remind himself that he's a powerful being and shall duel the mystical Skink Priest in combat. Luminark is here, but again, if it kills the Skink Priest, which is unlikely, it's probably just going to rout. It's not going to get any kills, so the Templehof wants to engage in other troops instead. This is such a funny battle. It's such a weird mess of everything. Chameleon Skinks are out of ammo at this point as well. I mean, they've got decent melee stats. They can charge in here and support. They need to be helping and poisoning the Spearmen who are attacking their engines. It looks like we are going to get a... No ways it's a regrowth on Spearmen. That might be the best regrowth of all time. It is! It's a regrowth on a unit of Spearmen, believe it or not. But of course, it is needed at this point. They are one of the only units which can get rid of these Bastildons, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. The Lizardmen still need to buckle around and rally to that last one, including the Saurus Old Blood if they can get him nearby to support, because they're all fighting spear units which do have that bonus versus large. And yes, they don't have much AP or anything, and a lot of the dinosaurs have big armor, but it definitely does help, and all adds up at the end of the day. Always good to see a Saurus Old Blood on one of these smaller mounts. Don't get to see him like this terribly often. And he's got some really cool attack animations, decapitating heads and ripping off limbs quite happily. It looks like that Cold One's having a good time. In the distance, Bastildon with Solar Engine is slowly wavering and being carved down. Big fat Earthblood is going to catch a ton of these spear units, enabling them to slowly pull through the Bastildon. And it's pretty key that the Empire stay in the game, even if they think they're going to lose, because it just buys more and more time for the bad boy to tread over some of these little skinkies. The little one got pushed over, but it seems they got back up. We are up to 304 kills now. That is some scary stuff. Swordsmen are dealing now quite comfortably with cold steel onto the Chameleon Skinks now that they actually have them in their grasp. In It looks like Bounce Power is pushing very heavily in favour of the Empire. Both Bastiladons are gone at this point. Source Oldblood slowly being dragged down. Sigma Suns are now in aid and supporting these Spearmen with shields. The Skink Priest is here trying to protect his lord. A Cold-Blooded has gone down, as well as the Amulet of Itzel, giving that 66% damage resistance. We can stay on his health for a little while, and it's just not going down. 715 and going strong. Fellow Cold Ones do run to the aid and cries of the Saurus Oldblood that the Old One's plan must succeed. Down here, Chameleon Skinks being forced off. Templehof up to 315, doing a good job breaking those guys down. The army losses are going to set in relatively soon. A big fat Earthblood goes down on the Sigma Suns and Spearmen to keep them nice and healthy over there. And this Spearman is just going to ensure that this Bastiladon doesn't ever see the light of day. That is not a fun job. That is a very risky job running at that beautiful site. In the main fight, well, the scraps of the main fight is just the hero core of the Lizardmen fighting. It's the only reason they haven't broken off the field for good. Source Oldblood very slowly going down, but still roaring in defiance at all the enemies. Those big tail whips look pretty cool as well. I don't really zoom in and get to see his animations too much, so this is pretty cool stuff. The poor Skink Priest is about done as well. He's not built for melee, and it looks like with his best friend gone, the Saurus Oldblood shall retreat to Lustria to plot his revenge. But he does survive, which is pretty good news for all Lizardmen lovers across the world. A Pyrrhic victory, an insane, stupid, wild game, and I absolutely love it. So very well played there to Elgi Nedlog, did a really good job there. Fantastic work. I believe he is Golden Eagle. I'm trying to think of that off the top of my head, but I'm 99% sure it is the man, the myth, the legend. Very impressive stuff with his Empire force, taking down Pubziv Raven. A really silly, stupid game. That is exactly what we expected. And the grand total for this week's challenge, which was the most kills on the Templehof Luminark, 315 and only 1,757 damage value despite the insane number of kills. Of course, a lot of those shots were aimed at skinks, cohorts and the like. 18,000 damage dealt as well. Pretty good stuff. As for the Outriders, they themselves were basically on scout patrol, helping protect the Templehof. And I really love the tactic here of moving with that cavalry on the right-hand side to protect the Templehof, as well as the Outriders and the Lord, net and so forth, and then allowing it to shoot down the flanks. I think that was always going to be the way to victory here. And the Outriders had a pivotal role in that, trying to deal with some of the enemy leadership. 1.7k damage value, 700 very good. Right Scar didn't fare too great. I still haven't seen them work particularly well in many matchups. I'm sure we can do a challenge with them in the future. But they did the job of just holding back and pinning in the enemy. Equally, so did the main infantry force. And funnily enough, the really stupid tactic kind of won in the game, because by getting rid of all that chaff, they didn't have enough to overwhelm the Empire State troops at the end of the day. Jade Wizard popping regrowths on Spearmen and stuff. It's just beautiful. It's absolutely hilarious stuff. Marcus Wolfhart as well, 841 damage value, 4,443 damage dealt is very nice. Saurus Oldblood up to 71 kills, not too shabby, did manage to take down the enemy leadership at least, and I'm sure that was the Old One's plan all along. Kill Marcus and then get the hell out of there. 1.3k damage value is relatively nice. Unfortunately, the most unlucky Skink Priest in the world, I would love to see a Manticore summon here or there, would have shut down the Templehof really well, but those Amber Spears kind of betraying his friends wasn't good at all. Saurus Scarvetchen, only a meager 63 damage value, very poor display by him. Across the board, the Skinks did suffer, of course. The Chameleons faring slightly better, 900 damage value here, as well as 674. And the Cold Ones, I just think they're a terrible unit. I'm sorry. I know there's some people who love them, but chucking them up against heavy infantry cavalry wasn't going to end up being too good for them, I suppose. But Bastiladons of Solar Engines did manage to gain some chevrons, though. 1.4 damage value here, as well as 1.7 doing some huge damage and nearly carrying the game in the end. Hope you guys enjoyed this wacky challenge. This week's challenge, you actually have till Thursday. This one went up a little bit late because it was on the older version of the game, so I had to wait till I came back to it. But this challenge, up until Thursday, you can submit via my Discord. There's a link down below in the description. To win this challenge, you must get the most damage value on a Rune Lord on his mighty anvil. So it's got to be a Rune Lord on his anvil, up against another player, can't be up against the computer or in campaign or any of those shenanigans. And of course, you've got to be trying to win the game and all that fun stuff. So I'm excited to see what replays we get for them. Until next time, guys, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.